Welcome to Mr. V Teaching Math. In this session, we are going to look at adding and subtracting of decimals. Here's an example of the questions we're going to be working on. We'll start with some adding. The very first thing you must do when you take this kind of question, you must rewrite the question and line up the decimals in correct position. I insist on this in my classroom. It's not the only thing I insist on. In fact, anytime someone is working with decimals, you'll note there are no zeros here, and yet I'm writing them. And I insist on it in all my students' work. In fact, anyone who leaves a zero out, I will mark it wrong. Now you might think, why? What's that for? This zero has no actual meaning. However, allow me to demonstrate. Perhaps somebody who's a little quick. Can you see the decimal? I put it there. It's there, but can you see it? If you put the zero in front, I'm going to look a whole lot harder for that decimal than if there's no zero. This looks like a 5 to me, but if I see a zero in front of it, I know that there's got to be a decimal in here somewhere. And so I will insist in my classroom that you must always put the zero in front. So, I have taken this question here. I've rewritten it with the decimals lined up. You must line the decimals up and have all the numbers in a nice orderly place value. In fact, it's by far the best in your classroom if you happen to have graph paper. My students do all their work on graph paper, and that allows you to line things up much more neatly than on plain paper like this. Lining up is absolutely necessary for adding and subtracting, not multiplying or dividing, which confuses students to no end. The decimals need to be lined up for adding and subtracting only. I can place a placeholder 0 here because 0.5 and 0.50, these are exactly the same. This 0 has no meaning because there's nothing behind it. This 0 has meaning because there's a digit behind it. I could add as many zeros here as I felt like, if you need it. Now, if you can add without writing the 0 there, go right ahead. You don't have to put that 0 there. But some people find it helpful. And now it's an adding question. Start in this column. 5 plus 0 is, of course, 5. 5 plus 0 is 5. Bring the decimal down, put a 0 in front, and there is the first question, 0.55. Now that's simple enough. What happens if we run into an adding question like this one? We've got a problem. Look at the 39. Where's the decimal? Now this is where I often talk about what I call the lazy mathematician. Mathematicians are always looking for shortcuts if they can find them, and the lazy mathematician didn't write the decimal. If you see a number with decimal indicated anywhere, the lazy mathematician has left it here on the end, invisible. So to take this question and rewrite it, it's going to look like this. $39 with the decimal. Now I take the other part, and I'm going to go decimal 632. And of course, I must include the 0. And a couple of placeholders if it helps me do the question. Notice the enormous difference between this and this. So when I add this up, I end up with a very different answer than if I just left that the way it is. And that's why it's absolutely necessary that you must line up the decimals. Let's move on to subtraction. Again, some more examples. We'll start with this one here. If we look at that example right over here, again, lazy mathematician, left at the decimal, put the decimal behind it, line up the other one, and now